After the outbreak of the doomsday zombies, I eked out a living in a cave. I received a message from my monitor, with whom I hadn't been in touch for a long time, and then, the end times were approaching. I couldn't save the world, nor was I a savior. All I wanted was to stockpile enough food and keep my only relative safe. My name is Lily. I had been working for less than 2 years after graduation. One day, as usual, I worked overtime until around 10 at night and then rushed to catch the last subway back to my rental apartment. Just after taking a shower, I saw a message on my phone. It was from my high school monitor. Buy enough food and hide. The short sentence made me realize something was wrong. Without hesitation, I dialed the number back. As soon as the call connected, the other side picked up quickly. Before I could ask, a voice full of anxiety and fear came through. Buy food and hide. The more the better. Monitor, what on earth is going on? Aren't you abroad? I can't explain it to you now. Just listen to me. Beep beep beep. The unfinished words made me panic. I was just an ordinary employee, earning 3 or 4,000 yuan a month. Where did I have so much money to buy food? I added up all the money on my phone, and there was only 20,000 yuan. So I borrowed all the money from a certain borrowing platform, getting a total of 50,000 yuan. That should be enough, I thought. I asked my manager for leave overnight, packed my things, and drove my electric four-wheel vehicle, which I hadn't used for a long time, back to my hometown. When I got home, I saw that the monitor had sent me several more messages. A virus has leaked here. 3 cities have already fallen. It will spread to our country in about a month at the fastest. Hide quickly and don't tell anyone. Next, several videos were sent by him. In the videos, there were some people with limbs, gnawing on humans. The ground was covered with human internal organs, and the blood stained the ground, like a living hell. There were even people dragging their internal organs, wandering in the street in strange postures. Some had half of their faces bitten off, and some only had one leg left, but they were still crawling on the ground. They were no longer human. They were zombies, right? I was so scared that I took about 10 minutes to calm down in the car before calling my elderly mother to open the door for me. My home was in the countryside, and the house was already 20 or 30 years old, not to mention zombies. It felt like the walls would collapse if the wind blew a little harder. My family didn't have much money, and finding a place to hide with my mother became my biggest concern at the moment. At first, I thought 50,000 yuan was almost enough. But after the monitor sent me the videos, I realized that not even 500,000 yuan might be enough. Lily, it's so late. Why don't you go to sleep first? My mother's gentle voice temporarily soothed my inner fear. My father abandoned us when I was only 1 month old because I was a girl, so over the years, my mother and I had depended on each other. I went back to my room. After seeing the light in the living room turned off through the crack of the door, I took out my phone and decided to speed up my preparations. To save money, I chose the pay after delivery option. I bought a lot of rice, flour, cooking oil, and grains from several different stores. This way, I didn't have to worry about the store owners recognizing me. The express delivery station was in the town, which also avoided people coming directly to my home to peek at my things. Besides rice, flour, cooking oil, and grains, I also bought various seasonings, dry noodles, eggs, all kinds of dried vegetables that can be stored for a long time, vegetables that can be kept fresh for a while, vacuum-packed bacon, all kinds of ham sausages, canned fruits, instant noodles, instant hot pots, and a lot of snacks and drinks. After making the decisive purchase, I contacted all the customer services and asked them to deliver the goods urgently at my own expense for the shipping fee. Then, I bought disposable underwear, sanitary napkins, toiletries, skin care products, soap, laundry detergent, hand washing liquid, body wash, shampoo, hair conditioner, lip balm, and several basins, from small vegetable washing basins to large bathing basins. I also entered a flagship store and bought 50 power banks, about 10 mobile phones, 10 tablets, and a super large capacity USB drive. Of course, all these were bought with the pay after delivery method. I didn't have the money to buy so many things at once. I still had other uses for that 50,000 yuan. After thinking for a while, I decided to buy something else. I opened a certain e-commerce platform again and chose the cheapest 4-5-liter barreled water. I communicated with the merchant, saying that I was going to open a supermarket in the village and bought 100 cases. They gave me 3 extra cases, with 4 barrels in each case, so there were 412 barrels in total. That should be enough, right? After seeing the successful order page, I turned off my phone and went to sleep. After all, as soon as it was dawn, I had to find a place to live. I woke up when it was just getting light. I had only slept for 4 or 5 hours, but I was so energetic. I drove around the village and unconsciously entered the mountain. In the morning, the mountain was foggy. There were many trees, which was a good place to hide from people and zombies, but once discovered, it would be very difficult to escape. When I was driving back home, I met my mother, who was going to work on the mountain. She was carrying a hoe, and her thin figure made my heart ache. If the zombies really broke out, how could her thin body escape? What are you doing in the mountains so early in the morning? Go back and sleep some more. Mothers always feel sorry for their children, and I was no exception. I parked the car on the side of the road, got out, and accompanied her to the field. At first, she didn't want me to. Wasn't I always working with you before? Why can't I do it now that I've graduated? I insist on going with you. After saying that, I took the fertilizer from her hand and walked up with her. Doing the work was just a pretense. The real purpose was to find a place to hide. There was only one piece of land on the top of the mountain, and it was my family's. I remembered that when I was a child, I came to work on the mountain with my mother. There was a cave not far from there. It wasn't big, but it was more than enough to accommodate 2 people, if that cave was still there. Could be used as a shelter for my mother and me. The mountain was full of trees, and there was only one piece of land on the top. My mother and I were outsiders. When we were allocated the land, naturally, the most difficult and farthest land was given to our family, so this cave probably wouldn't be discovered by anyone. My mother didn't have the heart to let me work. Just like before, I used the excuse of going to pick wild fruits and ran to look for the cave. Maybe it had been a long time since I came here. It took me a long time to find the entrance of the cave. When I walked in, it was empty inside, and the ground was relatively flat. Living here shouldn't be too bad. On one side of the cave was another cave, outside that side was a cliff, and below the cliff was a highway. This was just convenient for me to observe the situation outside. On the other side, there was a natural waterfall. At that time, as long as a larger water pipe was supported on it and several large water storage barrels were bought, the daily water use problem would be solved. I took pictures of the entire layout of the cave with my phone and planned to make a good plan on how to transform it after I got home. After getting home, I was worried and sent a message to the monitor, asking him about the current situation, whether he was in danger, and if he could come back, but there was no reply. In the afternoon, while my mother was resting at home, I ran to the street and bought 5 gas cylinders, 2 gas stoves, solar panels, and many batteries. Fortunately, the entrance of the cave was at a position near the top of the mountain, and the car could drive there. I parked the car on the road next to the cave and used all my strength to move all the gas cylinders in. It was almost dinner time when I got home. I planned to secretly buy some bricks, sand, and cement the next day to seal all the extra openings in the cave. 3 days later, the express deliveries I bought started to arrive one after another. I went out every afternoon. Fortunately, it was summer. I deliberately wore a sun protection mask to pick up the express. I had 2 phones. When I bought things, I didn't just fill in one phone number, I also filled in the address in the neighboring town. Although it was a bit farther, fortunately, the express delivery boss didn't suspect me. He was just curiously asking me what I bought so many things for, but I pretended not to be able to talk, and the boss didn't say anything more. I secretly transported all the things to the cave. Gradually, the space inside was filled. I had already installed the solar panels and water pipes by myself. In addition, I prepared 7 or 8 more water pipes, fearing that if the outside water pipes couldn't hold up and fell down, there would be no extra pipes. Time was getting more and more urgent. I sent many messages to the monitor, but he never replied to me again. Although I didn't want to admit it, I thought he was probably dead. After all the express deliveries were moved, I bought 2 folding beds, a lot of quilts, and curtains in the street to separate the place where my mother and I slept. I spent a day buying all kinds of medicines, and I also bought artificial grass to hang at the entrance of the cave to cover the entrance better. I also bought a lot of self-defense weapons against wolves, such as electric batons. I wanted to buy a long watermelon knife but couldn't, so I gave up. However, I bought a lot of thumbtacks and long nails. Although we were hiding well, I still had to be prepared for any accidents. Passing by a seed store, I bought seeds of various vegetables and fruits. I had already prepared the soil for growing vegetables in the cave. I visited all the markets and bought more than a dozen rootin' chickens. In the future, we wouldn't have to worry about not having meat and eggs to eat. Finally, I bought several filters and a lot of filter cotton. There was spring water on the mountain, and I had already bought storage barrels, but just in case, it was better to filter the water before using it. After all the things were moved to the cave, I sat in the car and scrolled through the news on my phone. Suddenly, a hot topic made me scared. Hashtag a case of rabies-related biting occurred on a certain subway. Hashtag. I clicked to open the video to watch. The person who was biting had white eyes. Although he was held down on the ground by several men, he was still chewing on the torn-off flesh in his mouth. Had it spread to our country in less than half a month? I panicked and went home to pack my things. Seeing me packing, my mother thought I was going back to work and grabbed my hand reluctantly, asking, "Lily, are you going back to work?" "Mom, go get all the important things, take everything important." My mother was confused by my words. She wanted to ask something but was interrupted by me. "Mom, go quickly, I'll explain to you later." My mother listened to me and obediently went back to her room to pack her things. An hour later, I loaded 3 full suitcases into the car and took my mother away from the village. After entering the mountain, my mother was even more confused. She wanted to ask something but was afraid that I would be fierce to her again. After about 10 minutes, the car stopped at the entrance of the cave. When I took my mother into the cave, she was shocked by the things inside. "Lily, what are you doing?" I pulled her to sit down, squatted in front of her, and said, "Mom, wait for me here first. I'll deal with the car and then come back. When I come back, I'll explain to you." Okay, I knew she had a lot of questions, but if the car wasn't dealt with, we would be easily discovered. After repeatedly confirming that my mother promised not to go out, I quickly drove the car to the bridge at the entrance of the village. The car wasn't locked, and the keys were on it. I deliberately put a few bottles of water and compressed biscuits. And in addition, I put 3 knives on the back seat. Although they were small, they could be used for self-defense. If someone needed them, maybe they could save their lives. I carried that big box of thumbtacks and walked from the entrance of the village to the cave. It took about 20 minutes. As soon as I entered the forest, I started to sprinkle thumbtacks all the way. After sprinkling about 50 meters, I heard a scream coming from somewhere in the village. My heart skipped a beat. I turned my head to look and vaguely saw an old woman being held and bitten on the neck by a person. Under the street lamp, I could faintly see the splashing blood. I quickened my pace and speeded up my hand movements, but I was so scared that I simply put away the thumbtacks, took a few quick steps, and then started running. When I arrived at the cave, I saw my mother waiting for me at the entrance. I quickly pulled her in the cave. I had prepared a pile of stones. I quickly picked up the stones one by one and stacked them up to block the entrance of the cave. My mother looked at me worriedly. "Mom, the zombies are coming." She didn't know what zombies were and just asked me who was screaming in the village and what had happened. After quickly blocking the entrance of the cave, I observed the surroundings. The time was too urgent, and not even one of the water storage barrels was full. After making sure everything was okay, I told my mother everything. On my mother's face, there was a change from confusion to shock and a hint of fear, afraid that she wouldn't believe me. I also showed her the videos sent by the monitor. Before she finished watching, she pushed my hand away. No, it's too scary, Mom. We have to hide here and wait for the country to rescue us, or we'll end up like these things." She nodded, finally understanding why I was so fierce to her at that time. Because time was running out and we needed to save our lives. My mother's adaptability was better than mine. After a few minutes, she even got up to look at my stockpiled goods. I didn't idle either. I took the telescope I bought and observed the situation outside. On the highway, the vehicles were driving normally for the moment, but there were several times more vehicles than usual. Occasionally, I could hear a few horn honks. It seemed that there was only an isolated case. And it wasn't a full-scale collapse. I was just about to put away the telescope. Bang! The huge impact sound made me quickly pick up the telescope again. At the exit of a tunnel on the highway, a large truck directly crashed into 4 or 5 cars. There was thick smoke, and I couldn't see clearly whether the people over there were normal. People got out of several cars. They covered their mouths and noses with their clothes and hid on the other side of the road. Just as I was taught they were all normal, the driver of the large truck fell directly from the driver's seat, and the next second, he stood up in a strange posture. His neck was half hanging, but he was still alive. His head was drooping, and without any warning, he rushed towards the few people standing on the side of the road. It was a zombie. The driver of this large truck had been infected. I watched him pounce on the people on the other side. A woman was directly knocked down by him. He opened his mouth and bit the woman's arm, then her neck, face, and stomach. Ugh, I couldn't stand this bloody scene. The videos sent by the monitor were at least through the phone, but this was something I saw with my own eyes. My mother came over worriedly and stroked my back. "Lily, I think these supplies are enough for us to eat for 2 years. Don't look at these things anymore. It's too scary. Mom, I'm afraid someone will find this place." My mother looked at me reassuringly. "No one knows about this place. Since this land was given to our family, no one has come up here again. That road was built by the village head for the convenience of selling trees at that time, but it didn't even reach the top of the mountain. You can imagine they don't know it all." My mother's words made me feel relieved. In the cave, I hung strings of lights, the kind that can shine for a long time when batteries are installed. I bought more than 2,000 yuan worth of light strings and more than 500 yuan worth of batteries. Although my mother and I weren't afraid of the dark, it wouldn't work without lights. We didn't have dinner. My mother took out a piece of bacon and some vegetables and simply made one dish and one soup. In the week after the zombie outbreak, I used the telescope to look at the highway every day. That night, it was still unobstructed. Since that car accident, the highway was full of cars in all directions, and there were zombies wandering aimlessly. When zombies have no prey, their mobility is extremely slow, but once there is the slightest movement, they seem to be awakened, and their speed is comparable to that of an adult male. However, these are just zombies without intelligence, relying on their senses to detect prey. Fortunately, they have no intelligence and will not actively search for food. "Come on, come and eat. Today is your birthday." Mom made you a fried egg and longevity noodles. I put the telescope on the table and looked at the longevity noodles in the bowl. I was already 27 years old, thinking about this apocalypse. I was finally an adult who could protect my mom. Seeing that I didn't pick up my chopsticks, my mom worriedly asked if the food didn't suit my taste. No, Mom, I just think it's kind of nice to go on like this, silly child. When this is all over, Mom will make your favorite meat for you. There was no electricity in the cave, and I didn't buy fresh meat. Even though the cave was warm in winter and cool in summer, meat would start to smell rotten after a few days. So apart from that pile of bacon, the only source of meat and eggs for my mom and me were those rotten chickens. After finishing the longevity noodles, my mom took a nap on the bed, while I opened the drone that I had bought but never unpacked. It had been a week since the zombie outbreak. I only knew the situation on the highway. I had no idea what was going on in the village or the forest. Now that I had it set up, I planned to secretly fly the drone out at night when the moon was bright to see what the village was like at night, while my mom was cooking. As soon as it got dark, I immediately sent the drone out. It flew around from the back cliff to the village. I didn't dare to get too close, but even so, the scene of the village in the moonlight was shocking. On the streets of the village were the uncles and aunts who used to chat with my mom, the children who were playing together during the day, and even the babies who had just learned to walk. My God, isn't that Grandma his granddaughter? She's only 3 years old. How could that baby who just started walking is the granddaughter of your Aunt Julian? I didn't know when my mom came to watch with me. Seeing the scene in the village, her eyes became red. There were probably no living people left in the village. I flew the drone from the entrance of the village to the highway and then slowly brought it back, afraid of being seen. After putting down the remote control, I went to hug my mom and softly comforted her. We can't save anyone, Mom. We're not the living bodhisattvas. As long as we're both okay, that's all that matters. 1 month after the zombie outbreak, the radish seedlings I planted had grown as long as a palm. To prevent them from getting old, my mom pulled them all out and made pickled vegetables without salt. For the second batch, I planted my favorite bok choy. When the cabbages grow, I'll pull them out, and on the 40th day after the zombie outbreak, the internet was cut off. The water and electricity would surely be cut off soon. Fortunately, we didn't need much electricity, usually. The solar panels had stored a lot of electricity. Our basic electricity consumption was just for charging our phones and tablets because my mom and I like to watch dramas. On the 80th day after the zombie outbreak, my mom and I were having breakfast, chatting and laughing. The chirping of birds nearby made us feel that the world was peaceful, but then a sound from the foot of the mountain made our smiles freeze on our faces. I put down my chopsticks, ran to the entrance of the cave, and pressed my ear against the piled-up stones, trying to hear what was going on below. Bang, bang, bang. The successive sounds made my mom and I both panic. Lily, is that gunfire? Your grandpa's shotgun used to make this kind of sound. If there were really guns, were these people good or bad? I wasn't sure. This made me truly feel afraid for the first time since the zombie outbreak. If those people were bad, our fate would be unimaginable. Zombies had no intelligence, but what about people? The gunfire stopped. Just when I thought everyone had left, a loudspeaker sounded from the foot of the mountain. We could hear it clearly in the cave. Dear fellow villagers, we are soldiers from the nearby military region. We are ordered to come here to clean up the zombies. If there are any survivors, please bring your luggage and food to the bridge at the entrance of the village. The surrounding zombies have all been killed. Please come out without worry. My mom was so excited when she heard this that she immediately asked me to remove the stones blocking the entrance, but I always felt something was wrong. Mom, let's wait and see. I bought 3 drones and decided to sacrifice one to observe them. The drone flew out from the cliff as usual and flew towards the highway, creating a flight path that made it seem like we weren't from the village. Since I was giving up this drone, I naturally wasn't afraid of being discovered. I secretly parked the drone on the roof of a house at the entrance of the village, which happened to allow me to see them. There were a total of 10 people with guns, each holding a firearm. They were looking at the people who came out of the village one after another. There were still some neighbors alive in the village. The family that often bullied my family was among them. There were 6 people in that family, but only the elderly couple came out. They were holding some eggs and a bag of rice. The eldest son of the village head's family was also there. There were several other families, and each family had some food in their hands. Their eyes were full of hope for being rescued, but the leading man just raised his hand, and several men beside him raised their guns and started shooting at these people. As expected, there was something wrong. They were not real soldiers. They were just taking advantage of the virus outbreak to do evil. My mom covered her mouth and watched everything on the video. They were just people coming out to look for food. The zombies hadn't been completely dealt with. If they were real soldiers, how could they let the survivors come out? After killing these people, the group of people didn't forget to enter the houses to search for everything they could take away. Everyone got into the car. Just as they didn't find me and was about to drive the drone back after they left. The leading man glanced in the direction of the drone when the car started. It was an unconscious glance, but I was sure he had found me. For the safety of my mom and me, I decided to play along. As soon as their car left, I controlled the drone and flew it directly to a village near the highway entrance. This way, I could observe without using the telescope. That man was too smart. So I also removed the solar panels and water pipes, fearing that if they saw them, they would come back again. Sure enough, the modified car entered the village where the drone was parked soon. They used the same words as before, but no one came out in this village. "Boss, that drone must be from here, otherwise, why wouldn't anyone come out?" a subordinate said to him beside him. I could see everything clearly through the video. They had an unusually large number of bullets, maybe because it was near the highway. There were obviously more zombies in this village than in ours. But they didn't seem afraid at all. The gunshots kept ringing, and soon, there were corpses all over the ground, all killed by them. They shouted several times through the loudspeaker, but still no one came out. The leading man spat on the ground and said something to the subordinate beside him. Then the subordinate called everyone to get in the car. The leading man, on the other hand, carefully looked around and then left. The drone stayed there all the time. I took out the battery of the remote control and threw the remote control directly from the entrance of the cave. Fearing more trouble, this group of people helped us clean up the zombies in the surrounding area. We had about a week of peaceful days. During this week, there were no moans of zombies. It was as if we had returned to the time before the zombie outbreak. On the highway, there were corpses all over the ground. When the wind blew harder, we could faintly smell a stench of decay. "Stop looking, we're having chicken today." Yes, the rootin' chickens had hatched chicks. To celebrate, my mom killed one and made soup. The fragrant chicken soup made me put down the telescope, and in the distance on the highway, when I ran to the dining table, a large group of zombies appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. I was so immersed in the chicken soup that I didn't notice the approaching zombie horde at all. When I stood at the entrance of the cave to breathe after finishing the soup, I saw that the last of the zombie horde had entered another tunnel. I quickly picked up the telescope to look. The highway was full of zombies. Many zombies were pushed off the highway and started wandering around. The nearby villages that had been cleared of zombies were invaded by zombies again. There were even more zombies than before. I observed them carefully. Why did these zombies, which seemed to come from nowhere, look different from the original ones here? This group of zombies was extremely sensitive. Even when the chirping of birds came, they could clearly find the direction. Could zombies evolve? "Mom, let's not stir-fry food these days. Just eat some instant food." This group of zombies seems to have much better hearing than before. 6 months after the zombie outbreak, winter gradually came. The zombies outside hadn't eaten for a long time, and their mobility became very slow. It seemed that they were deliberately conserving energy. Or perhaps their abilities were really starting to decline. Even some zombies started to cannibalize each other. Young and capable zombies began to attack those without attack power and then devour them. I saw this several times, and it made me unable to eat anything for a whole day. It was too disgusting. In these few months, everything here was very safe, except for that group of people who came last time. No one else had come here in half a year. There were 2 vehicles on the highway. One was an ordinary SUV, and the other was a large truck. After they got out of the vehicles, they were either surrounded by zombies or blocked by the cars on the road. In the end, they all became part of the zombie army. "Andrew, it's right up here." Suddenly, a woman's voice came from outside, which made me startled and my heart beat faster. How could there be no sign at all? This was the top of the mountain. Why would someone want to come up? Countless questions and worries came to my mind. Judging from the footsteps, there were probably 7 or 8 people. The voices were getting closer and closer. "Damn it, if there's no land up here, I'll fucking kill you," a man cursed, listening to the voice. He seemed right outside. I could feel that they were right at the entrance of the cave. Fortunately, the entrance of the cave was already overgrown with grass, and they probably wouldn't find it, but I was still very scared. I took out the knife I prepared at that time, stood at the entrance of the cave with trembling hands, and turned my head to look at my mom who was taking a nap. After a while, someone should have come down from the top of the mountain. "Boss, there's really a piece of land up there. Although there are few potatoes in the field, it's still enough for us to eat for a long time. See, Andrew, I told you there was a piece of land up here. The old lady in our village used this piece of land. She couldn't have not planted anything, so they were running out of food. That woman was from the same village as me. She sounded about my age. Presumably, she was just trying to survive. Fortunately, she didn't know there was a cave up here. Otherwise, my mom and I probably wouldn't have been able to escape. After about half an hour, the group of people happily went down the mountain, and I finally relaxed. The knife in my hand fell to the ground, making a sound that woke my mom up. "What's wrong, Lily? Why are you holding a knife? A group of people came up just now. I was worried they would find this place, so I took it for self-defense." My mom woke up instantly and quickly started looking for something. "Mom, they've left. It's okay." I stepped forward to stop my anxious mom. The longer the apocalypse lasted, the more people were short of food, and the more unsafe we became. But for now, the stones at the entrance of the cave were already overgrown with grass, which was our best protection. As long as we hid well, we definitely wouldn't be discovered. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, gunshots came from outside, which made my mom and I both startled. I quickly pulled my mom to the side to comfort her. And then I ran to the other entrance of the cave and withdrew all the things inside, fearing that people would see signs of our living here. Andrew, there are more and more zombies. What should we do? It was the group of people just now. They should have been discovered by the zombie horde when they were going down the mountain, but thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem right. When they came up, it was impossible that no zombies noticed them. I listened at the entrance of the cave, trying to figure out how far they were from me. The gunshots were still continuous. Gradually, the low growls of those zombies also started to appear. The appearance of zombies on the mountain was very unfriendly to us. Get away from me. The woman's scream seemed to make the zombies even more excited, and their wanton roars came one after another. Fuck, Arthur, blow them up. As soon as the leading man finished speaking. About 10 seconds later, a loud explosion came from outside. A bomb. These people actually had a bomb. The fear in my heart rose again. What if these people blew up this place? I was afraid of being eaten by zombies, and I was even more afraid that my mom, at her age, would end up like that. I anxiously walked back and forth in the cave. There must be a way. There must be a way. The rootin' chickens. Mom, go kill a rootin' chicken quickly. Lily, what are you going to do? I told her my plan while taking the drone. I wanted to attract all the zombies at the bottom of the mountain. They went up for the sake of convenience and shouldn't have carried too many things. My mom was a bit reluctant, but for the sake of survival, I had to do this. The bombs outside were getting more and more intense. Several times, they were near the entrance of the cave. If they exploded a few more times, we would be completely exposed. My mom killed the chicken, and I tied it to the drone and flew it to a village near here. Sure enough, all the zombies that had scattered last time were wandering in the village, smelling the long-lost blood. Their originally slow speed became rapid. They followed the drone all the way to the top of the mountain, and I finally saw what that group of people looked like. I had an impression of that girl. She was the youngest daughter of the village head, working as a kindergarten teacher in the town. She was fair-skinned and beautiful. No wonder this group of people was willing to take her with them. The leading man had a scar on his face. Just by looking at his appearance, he looked fierce. Boss, there's a drone. Someone deliberately brought it up here. A subordinate pointed at my drone and shouted. When the scarf-faced man turned his head to look at my drone, my heart skipped a beat. It was terrifying. Fuck, is that bastard Carter up to something? When I get back, I'll blow up his base. Boss, we don't have enough bombs. And the bullets are almost gone. What should we do? Boss, I don't have enough either. More and more zombies swarmed towards them like hungry wolves seeing live prey when they saw the living people. The outcome was predictable, including that neighbor girl. They all became part of the zombies. The drone turned around and flew directly to the bottom of the mountain and stopped on the roof of a house, through the cave, within less than a minute. Terrified screams came from outside one after another. There were also the sounds of zombies chewing bones. I was scared and turned to look at my mom, who was also scared, but I had no choice. I wasn't a saint. I couldn't choose to save them at the cost of sacrificing my mom and me. For the sake of survival, I had to be the bad guy. At night, my mom and I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The roars of the zombies outside made us have no drowsiness at all. It felt like they would break in at any moment. In the middle of the night, I could even hear a strange sound coming from the top of the mountain. The zombies before had never made such a sound. Why was there this sound today? And it was a woman's voice. When I woke up, it was already noon the next day. I didn't even know how I fell asleep yesterday. When I got up from the bed, my mom had already prepared breakfast. The two of us tacitly didn't mention what happened yesterday, as if it had never happened. However, an even bigger thing happened. We were discovered. A drone was circling back and forth in front of the solar panel. There was a small basket tied to the bottom, and a note was placed inside. I didn't want to take it, but I was afraid that if I angered the other side, they would directly bring people up. I didn't know whether the other side was male or female, or how many people there were, so after much hesitation, I chose to take down the note. Hello, I discovered you a long time ago, but don't worry, I have no intention of threatening you. I have a child here who is sick. He has had a fever for a week. I've searched all the pharmacies, but those medicines are no longer usable. If you have any antipyretics or cold medicines, could you give me some? I promise I won't bother you. What's going on, Lily? What does it say, Mom? Go and gather some cold medicine, antipyretics, and also some eggs. We'll send them over. It took about 10 minutes to get everything ready. There was enough medicine for a week, and I gave 20 eggs. Since the rootin' chickens were multiplying, I wasn't too stingy with the eggs. I just hoped this person would keep their word. The drone had been hovering at the entrance, waiting for me. After I put all the things in the basket, the drone flew away. I wanted to see where it was going, But this person clearly didn't want me to know. It deliberately circled a few times and then disappeared. For the next 3 days, I was on tenterhooks. I was afraid that this person would bring a lot of people to rob us and drive me and my elderly mother out. But 3 days passed, and they never showed up. This gradually made me believe what they said. At night, I was standing alone at the entrance of the cave, looking out at the pitch-black darkness. Woo woo woo. The same drone from that day stopped in front of me again. I panicked. The drone kept circling in front of me until I saw the note inside. When I picked up the note, there was also a gun placed underneath. The child is almost better. Thank you. My name is Carter. I know you probably don't lack supplies. This gun is my way of thanking you. My hands were shaking as I picked up the gun from the basket. I had never touched such a thing in my life. The first time I did, I was quite excited. I was about to pick some fresh vegetables to give to him. After all, this gun was much more valuable than those medicines. But when I turned around, the drone was already gone. 10 months after the zombie outbreak, my mom and I wrapped ourselves in thick cotton padded jackets and lit a fire in front of us. Fortunately, I had collected all the firewood from my mom's field in the cave before. Fearing the cold, it really came in handy. "I'll make you a soup tonight to warm you up," Mom said. "Okay, and the radishes I planted can be eaten now. Let's stew them with the chicken." I used to not even know how to dig the ground, but now I could grow all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Probably because of winter, the zombies were on the roads. Even if there were living people around, their movements were much more sluggish. As a result, many people took the opportunity of winter to go out in search of food or even flee to the next place. We still had a lot of stored food. Two people didn't consume much. With Mom around, on sunny days, she would drag the bags of rice and flour to the entrance of the cave one by one to dry them, preventing them from getting moldy or infested with insects. We had rotten chicken eggs, all kinds of vegetables, and fruits. It was safe here, and we had no intention of going out to find another safe place or taking risks. I wrapped myself in the thick cotton padded jacket and came to the entrance of the cave as usual to check the situation outside, but it seemed that things were getting worse. In a certain village below, the zombies suddenly gathered at the door of a certain house, slowly but forcefully patting on the door and the walls. I adjusted my telescope and found that there were 5 men, 2 women, and 3 children inside. They clearly hadn't gone out. So why did the zombies find them? Just as I was wondering, a loud roar came from the entrance of the cave. My mom, who was killing a chicken, and I turned our heads simultaneously. I put down the telescope and ran over, pressing my ear against the stones to try to hear the outside sound. The zombies were gathering around. What was going on? What on earth was happening? Seeing more and more zombies. For the moment, there was no immediate danger. The vines outside had already frozen into ice strips, blocking the entrance. But once the frozen vines broke, the entrance would be breached soon. I quickly thought of a way. Suddenly, I saw the chicken my mom had killed. The warm chicken blood and the half-plucked chicken still had a strong smell of blood. I tried throwing the chicken and the chicken blood out from the other entrance of the cave, and then poured out the whole basin of hot water. After doing all this, I continued to lie on the stones, trying to convey messages from the outside through the gaps above. Gradually, the zombies left the entrance of the cave. The zombies were starting to evolve uniformly. After 2 consecutive days of observation, I found that although the zombies were slow in movement, their sense of smell was extremely sensitive. As long as there was a trace of blood smell, they would follow the smell to look for food. I used the telescope to observe those people from that day. Apparently, they also discovered the problem of the zombies' evolution. The zombies around their house didn't leave. Everyone was at home, and only a young man was in the yard, observing something. I could only see him walking around in the yard. Occasionally, a woman would come to call him, but after a while, the woman went back inside, and he was still in the yard. "Lily, come and eat something. You can't not eat," Mom said. I put down the telescope, walked in, and looked at the light vegetables on the table. Then at Mom's worried face. She must be extremely scared. It had been almost a year, and we had never left the cave. Now, because of the zombies' evolution, we lived in fear every day. We didn't know how long this kind of life would last. "Mom, it's okay. There are still living people nearby. We're not the only ones." Mom forced a smile in response to my words. During the meal, there was the sound of brakes on the highway. I quickly put down my chopsticks and ran to have a look. On the highway, a modified armored vehicle was blocked by the cars on the road and couldn't move forward, and their appearance attracted a large number of zombies to attack them. The leading man stretched half of his body out of the car window, and with his gun cocked, he fired a volley at the zombies. Even from such a distance, I could hear their laughter, as if they were deliberately coming here to kill the zombies for fun. Then, the man got back into the car, and the vehicle reversed skillfully and left the highway. I started to feel a bit panicked. That man somehow seemed very scary to me. The zombies were gradually evolving. Even those with guns could hardly protect themselves. What about us ordinary people? Right, that person named Carter gave me a gun last time. I quickly ran to the bed and rummaged it out. I tried to open it to see how many bullets were inside. Just like in the movies, but I ignored the fact that this was a real gun. I had a gun, but if those people found me here, I was outnumbered. Eventually, it might not be enough to defend myself. Late at night, it snowed heavily again. The zombies were buried in the snow, frozen stiff and unable to move. This gave many people who wanted to escape a rare opportunity. I stood by the window, watching the people with weak flashlights appearing on the highway. I was tempted. I also wanted to go out. But where could I run? Was there a base now? Was the base safe? Even getting down the mountain safely was a problem. I lay back on the bed again, but this time, I only slept for 3 hours. In the morning, I got up, and Mom had already boiled hot water and filled it in a thermos to warm my hands. I habitually came to the entrance of the cave to observe the family that was still alive. They were clearly there yesterday, but now, when I looked, there were zombies wandering around in their yard. These zombies were completely different from those that were frozen stiff. They seemed to take the initiative to look for food. They entered every room, and after not finding anyone, they came out to look for the next place. Dong, dong, dong. There was a knocking sound outside the cave. The telescope fell from my hand in fear. I motioned for Mom not to speak and quietly walked to the entrance of the cave. Dong, dong, dong. They were hitting the stones at the entrance of the cave. Only then did I realize that these things were not unable to move because of the cold, but they had evolved. Every time it snowed heavily, they became more sensitive than before. Last time, it was their sense of smell. What about this time? It was their eyes. They could see, so they took the initiative to look for food. That's why they were hitting the frozen vines at the entrance of the cave. Because they wanted to see if there was a cave behind the vines and if there were people inside. I quickly helped Mom carry the remaining rice and flour to block the entrance. The two of us, scared, huddled together. Next to me was the gun. If those things came in, I would shoot without hesitation. Sure enough, after a while, the vines were broken by them, but the entrance of the cave had been blocked for so long that it seemed like a natural blockage. They just scratched it a few times and then left, hearing the sound of their leaving. I finally relaxed. But I was even more afraid of the next heavy snow. What would they evolve into? Could they hear? If they could, would they find us inside? There were quite a few zombies near the cave. What should I do then? Lily, what on earth will these things become? Mom was trembling all over. I pretended to be calm and comforted her. Then I reminded Mom that during this period, we should try not to talk and use our phones to type instead. Also, cover the root and chickens with thick quilts to prevent them from making noise. I also blocked the other entrance of the cave with things, leaving only a small slit at the bottom for observing the outside. From the outside, it was impossible to find the slit. They could see now. If they found my place, it would be the most dangerous signal. 11 months after the zombie outbreak, it was New Year's, for the sake of survival. We didn't have anything special to eat after the last incident. There was no more heavy snow, and the zombies didn't evolve any further. During this period, many people passed by here, but no matter how they hid, they eventually became part of the zombie army. Strangely, the people who later turned into zombies were just mindless ones, running around aimlessly. Even some child zombies were collectively eaten by the evolved zombies. 3 days later, a blizzard came. The vast expanse of white made me worry again. This snow was much heavier than the previous 2 times. In less than an hour, the ground was completely white, and the snow on the ground was already up to the ankles. As estimated, even at night, I didn't dare to sleep, for fear that there would be any movement from the zombies outside. Dong dong. I felt something hitting the entrance of the cave on the cliffside. I gently lifted a corner of the thing blocking the entrance. It was the previous drone. The basket was below. And there was still something inside. I didn't dare to stick my head out to look directly, for fear of being discovered, so I reached up my hand to grope in the basket. There was a note and a plastic bag containing something unknown. When it snows heavily, the zombies will evolve. These bullets are for your self-defense. If necessary, you can use the walkie-talkie to call me. Don't make any noise. The zombie's sensitivity is several times higher than that of humans. I opened the bag. Inside were attuned in walkie-talkie and bullets in a box. There was about half a box in the shoebox. It was enough for self-defense. But why did he help me? And where was this man? The snow lasted for 3 full days. The cars on the highway were already buried, and those zombies, like before, were covered by the heavy snow, seemingly frozen stiff. But both I and this man named Carter knew that this was a process before their evolution. Once they woke up, another group of survivors would die at their hands. Lily, with such heavy snow, will these things be frozen to death this time? Mom wrote a sentence on a piece of paper and handed it to me. I shook my head at Mom. Mom, who had a glimmer of hope in her eyes, instantly became disappointed again. It had been over a year, although we were still alive here. What if the world remained like this? Would we have to live in this cave for the rest of our lives? No, it wouldn't be like that. I took the pen and paper and wrote words of comfort to Mom. Don't worry, the country will save us. We should believe in our motherland. I motioned for Mom to go rest, and I continued to lie on the ground, observing the outside. Since this entrance was also blocked, I had moved the bedding on my bed here. When I was sleepy, I just slept here. The solar panels couldn't absorb electricity. Mom and I hadn't taken a bath for half a month. We also rarely talked. Every day, we just ate steamed buns, bread, and drank water, day by day. It was like this. We were almost at the end. We just needed to wait a little longer, and someone would surely come to rescue us. Overlapping screams came from outside. I followed the sound and saw 3 little girls. Judging by their appearance, they should have run out of the school in the town, hoping to find the next hiding place before the zombies moved, but they underestimated the zombies. They didn't even know that the first ones to turn into zombies would be the first to complete the evolution. Unfortunately, they encountered the first batch of people who became zombies. The snow stopped, but the sun was unusually white, so white that it was dazzling. This strange sun made the snow melt very quickly. The zombies woke up. We didn't know what they had become this time. I didn't dare to look, for fear of being discovered by them. After tightly blocking the entrance of the cave, I sat in the cave with Mom. Although we were sitting, our hearts were filled with unease. I waited for a long time, but there was no movement outside. I felt very strange. The number of zombies brought up by those people last time was quite large. There should have been dozens or even more zombies outside the cave. Just as I was thinking this, a rustling sound came from outside. My heart instantly tensed up. Mom didn't say anything, but the hand holding mine was full of sweat. I gently patted her and silently mouthed, "It's okay." How could it be okay? I was terrified. "Is there anyone there? Please save me." The voice came from the field on top of our cave. It was a woman's voice, and it sounded very familiar, judging from my expression. Mom wrote on the paper, "It's the girl who brought people to dig potatoes last time." This shocked me even more. Was she still alive? Impossible. Just as I was thinking, the voice came down from the top. It was right nearby. I walked closer to the entrance of the cave, trying to hear more clearly. After listening carefully, I heard that the zombies outside were still there. Then why wasn't this girl bitten by the zombies? Suddenly, a possibility came to my mind, making my back shiver and my hair stand on end. This time, only a small number of zombies evolved. They became like humans and could find prey by talking, or perhaps she was different from other zombies from the beginning. The night she died, she made that strange sound all night. It was her, so these days, she didn't change during all the evolutions because from the very beginning, she was a human-like zombie. It wasn't the heavy snow that made the zombies evolve, it was the virus in the zombies that affected the human genes. The heavy snow was just an auxiliary factor. It was terrifying. I ran to the other entrance of the cave and used the telescope to look outside. All the zombies were wandering around the village. Some could climb walls, and some had learned to cooperate to open the door. It wasn't just a small number of zombies that evolved. This time, the evolution was different in degree and direction for each zombie. The one outside the cave could talk, so she surely couldn't climb walls like a human. The ones that could climb walls couldn't talk. If this was the case, did it mean we were in even more danger? There must be someone here. Please save me. I'm being chased by zombies. Please, save me. The woman's voice was right at the entrance of the cave. I was so scared that I turned around, quickly picked up the gun, and stood in front of Mom, protecting her. Both of us were trembling with fear, but I still had to protect Mom well. We didn't make any sound, but she pleaded for help outside for several hours, for several consecutive days. I found that the ones that could talk, climb walls, and cooperate were indeed only a small number. The others were still at the stage of being able to hear, and the only one near the cave that had successfully evolved was that girl. She could talk and use her voice to lure people. This made Mom and I even more cautious. If there was another heavy snow, we didn't know what would happen. Would they be able to directly discover that we were inside? Would humans be completely wiped out until the zombies ruled the whole world? I was too scared to think further. No, it wouldn't be like that. I always believed in the country. 13 months after the zombie outbreak, the weather returned to normal, and we received the best news so far. Occasionally, there was a signal. I received a message from the monitor, saying that they had fled back to the country, and the military was safe. They had already started a full-scale disinfection and elimination of zombies, but when I edited the message to reply to him, it failed to send again due to the lack of signal. However, for us, this was already very good news, and our days began to have hope again. 14 months after the zombie outbreak, the signal was restored. I couldn't wait to refresh my phone, and there was a message from the country. 65% of the zombies in the country have been eliminated. The elimination work will continue. Please, dear survivors, continue to hide in safe places and wait for the country's rescue. We were in the countryside, so it naturally wouldn't be our turn to be rescued soon, but this still made my mother and I hug each other and cry with joy. 15 months after the zombie outbreak, I heard the voice of the man on the walkie-talkie for the first time. Stay in the cave and wait for me. The zombies at the foot of the mountain have all been killed. Don't come out until I call you on the walkie-talkie. The sound of the walkie-talkie was not soft. Even the slightest sound reaching the outside could make the zombies outside go crazy instantly, as if they hadn't eaten fresh food for a long time. They crazily crashed into the cave, and that girl who could talk came. I knew there was someone inside. Please save me. Let me in. Okay, I'm human. I'm human. Her voice became more and more frenzied, and the laughter made my blood run cold. Looking at the stones at the entrance of the cave that were already starting to shake, my heart was in my throat. I didn't dare to go out. My mother and I could only struggle to hold against the entrance to prevent the stones from falling too soon, otherwise, I would really die. With the sound of a stone falling to the ground, gunshots also came from outside. It wasn't just one person, there were many. Even before the zombies could pounce on them, they were already dead. 3 to 5 minutes later, Carter's voice came from the walkie-talkie. It's okay now. Stay away from the entrance. I'll open it for you. 15 months. When the sunlight shone into the cave, a man stood at the entrance, looking at me. He was holding a gun and wearing a military uniform. Hello, I'm Carter. The man walked in, first thanked me, and then saluted me. You. I was confused. He was a soldier. Why was he in this area? As if he understood my question. Carter asked someone to help my mother out, and then he reached out to support my arm. I was on leave and happened to be at home when the zombie outbreak occurred. There is a military base nearby, but this base also fell. I had no choice but to hide in another cave on the other side for a long time. Because of the drone, I used it to ask my comrades to transport guns and bullets. My brother died while looking for medicine for the child, leaving behind my sister-in-law and nephew. So I had to trouble you that time, so that was what happened. When I came out, I saw the zombies lying on the ground, and I couldn't help but shiver in fear. Fortunately, there was Carter, or I would have been so scared that I would have sat on the ground. What's your name? I looked up at Carter. Lily. On the way down the mountain, the zombies on the road had been cleared. In our village, only my family survived. On the way to the hospital for a check-up, I sent a message to the monitor to report that I was safe and said I would invite him to dinner next time, but he refused. Carter, who was beside me, said in a low voice, I can invite you. I looked up at him, and our eyes met. The man's face blushed slightly, and his subordinate beside him deliberately said, when we received the mission. The boss was the first to apply to be the person in charge of eliminating zombies in this area. The boss was probably afraid that no one would find sister-in-law here. Carter coughed softly and said to me seriously, the world is at peace now.